Good afternoon. I'm wearing this hat because if you haven't seen hats like this, it's a kind of an explorer's hat. You see people in the jungles looking for treasure or wild animals or some other nonsense, maybe flying saucers. That's on the History Channel, which doesn't have history anymore. But we're going to be talking about exploring multiculturalism. And I like to look at it as a very dynamic, changing subject rather than as something narrow and focused with a curriculum that's been set in stone since the Romans. So I've got the assignment. I'm actually going to do a video in just a minute on the 3 stages of cultural awareness. But for right now, I want you to watch, and I put it on last night, the Temple Grandin, New Faces on Main Street. The Cultural Awareness Scale or document's going to be up there, stages, whatever you want to call it. And then have you listen to this video and the next one I'm going to make, if maybe 2. And then there'll be a discussion, which I will not put up until tomorrow. I hope I don't have anybody trying to finish the week's work on Monday. I do like things to percolate a little bit. It's not fill in the blank. And I like you to interact. So this is not a, get it done as fast as possible type course. So I put some questions on here. Now, I want you to understand you're not to write an essay or anything about the questions. The only writing you're going to do is on the discussion, and I haven't put it up yet. So this stuff is just for you to chew on. It's kind of a hors d'oeuvres for academics. I like that term. I put on some questions. When you're looking at the document, you're going to see it lists things like what people think, what people feel. For feel, they're going to say affective, A-F-F-E-C-T-I-V-E, which is the emotions, the affection. You think that term. Also, the intellectual or the cognitive, what do people say? So we're doing a little exploring because I want you to look on that sheet on the cross-cultural awareness. I didn't put things that are happening in this year or even the last couple of years or 5 years. I'm mainly putting things that are more historical, which if you're not a historian, you may not be familiar with these, but I've got enough examples and I have some little pictures on there and stuff, so to help. Just to go through those, on the first stage, I put in there homeless, the elderly, yours truly, and other people that are sometimes overlooked in the first stage of the intercultural awareness or cultural awareness is being ignored. And that'll be the first stage. You just don't even see them. The second stage is the defensive or the let's defend ourselves, protect ourselves, build a fortress, build a wall, let's protect ourselves because we got outsiders coming in and we've got to stop this. And that's can be done in many different ways, not with a real wall, but with words and laws, etc. During the Civil Rights Movement, do you remember there were, for actually a century, there have been all kinds of laws to prevent African Americans from voting. Things like this happened in other aspects depending on who the groups were. If you may recall that Native Americans were not voting citizens when they were assimilated into the United States, however you want to use that term. You can look it up. Finally, some groups, once people accept them, they quit looking for the differences. So those 3 stages I'll go through in a minute. We'll talk about that. But I want you to think about those and look at things happening now that you can say, oh, that's that stage or this is that stage. I'm not going to try to just cherry pick things and say, oh, my political viewpoint's this and you can see how I'm right. But I'm going to let you think about it. Okay, number 2, I put Temple Grandin in here because it's often appealed to me or appeared to me that those who are often overlooked, or their background, their circumstances not examined, is not just people that are maybe culturally different, but people that are culturally different because of the condition, either physical, mental, emotional, behavioral, whatever that is. And I picked Temple Grandin because people didn't know how to take her. She was a different type of person, and they didn't know what autism was. That was literally autism. Knowledge of autism is very in its earliest stages. It's only been really discussed or slightly understood for about 30 years or 40 years, and people didn't know how to recognize it. Temple Grandin made a difference in that. So she's a pioneer. She changed the way people see autism. At the same time, her story is not typical. There is not such a thing as just, this is autism, this isn't autism. It's complicated. She's also a very gifted person. How does that work in there? So I just had a discussion at coffee with a friend of mine, and she thought that gifted or intelligence, Asperger's syndrome, and IQ, somehow these come together. I don't know. She was describing some kind of a structure in her mind, but we don't know a lot about the workings of the mind and human behavior, and not just conditions or syndromes, but much about our own background and how people are, how they think. So I'm picking Temple Grandin as an example of getting used to another culture. And the other one is New Faces on Main Street. And the New Faces is kind of a slow paced, pedantic kind of video. It talks about people moving, new immigrants moving to Nebraska, Wisconsin, Michigan, Iowa, back in the Dakotas, back in the late 1990s. So it's a dated video, but it's a very good example to illustrate the cultural awareness stages, because you're going to see people reacting to all these new people coming into Dakota City, Storm Lake, Iowa, Grand Island, Nebraska, Wahoo, Wisconsin. I think it's Wahoo. No, Wausau, Wisconsin. I've got Wahoo on the mind. Some of you live there. You can see this very same pattern in the video New Faces. You can see it in small towns, particularly with immigrants like the ones that are portrayed in the video. This is not something that just happened 20 years ago and stopped. It's an ongoing activity. And with all the immigration and politics going on, it's even more hyperbolized. It's more emphasized. People think about it all the time. So I want you to look at that. And I wanted you to look at these first without being lectured on them. So I kind of wanted you to watch them twice, actually once, just enjoy them and just go through it. Don't just react to it emotionally and think about it. And now I got some questions here about, have you seen these? Have you ever been treated like this when you went to a new place? Or have you seen your friends or someone you know? Or have you treated someone, you don't have to confess, but I mean, have you been suspicious of people that were different, you know? And I put in here, my last question, number 4, was think about your group. I'll ask this in the discussion, but about in your school. Now, you don't have to get too detailed about your school, because I recognize that several of you are from the same district, so I don't want you making some statements you might feel uncomfortable with. And by the way, if you have any questions that you really just want to share with me, you can email me or you can call me. I mean, sometimes I answer that phone. A lot of people are trying to get my credit report. I know it's not you. But anyhow, I put in here, like in your school or your community, religious groups. You could have Muslim students or people who speak a different language come in, or you could have somebody in there out in Dakotas talk about the Hutterites, a German group. I think it's German group. And I remember hearing about them, but I don't know much about them. Are they Amish? Who are these people? So I've really enjoyed those maps and your introductions. I take notes and make little cartoons trying to keep everything in mind. So I at least kind of have an idea where you are. And I'm trying to keep the groups apart just so I don't talk about somebody who's not in a group and they're in the other group. We do have a big class, so it takes a little while to go through everything. I still have about 5 to go through in section 1. And but I was thinking about multicultural, and it could apply to service clubs, professional groups, LBGQT, gay issues. Some people say, "Oh, that's not an issue in our school. We don't talk about that." But that's not. That's coming. It's a different. It's a change. But also language groups, ethnic groups. I mean, we could go on and on. Socioeconomic, I don't have it on here. I think that's big because I remember noticing that the issue of poverty and wealth may not seem so obvious because the kids may look alike and not dress that much differently, but it has to have some impact, and it's part of culture. So you can't really say something's not part of culture, because if we use language to talk about it, we're not talking. If we're talking about humans, it's culture. That's all they got around them, whatever it is. So anyhow, I want you to enjoy this. I'll put the discussion up tomorrow. Now I'm going to talk about the stages on the next video.